Hey again, welcome to Dr. Bret's office and another foray into Dr. Bret's mailbag. I'm Bret Manasseh, a 20-year psychotherapist and university professor, and I take questions from anybody and everybody interested in mental health. Whether you're a new counselor, an experienced counselor, even if you're not a counselor, but you just want to learn more about what counseling is like. Everybody's welcome. Today we've got a letter from Haley T. in Texas, who writes, "Hi, Dr. Bret. I'm a grad student in my counseling internship. I currently lead towards an Adlerian approach, but if you have a client who says they procrastinate a lot and it's causing problems for them, should you move to a CBT type solution? When do we need to sit with clients versus help them problem solve? P.S. I love this series." Thank you, Haley. I'm glad that you do. That's a good question, but one without a single answer. And ultimately, it comes down to how you yourself define mental health. How do people get unhealthy? How do they get better? How can you best help them? These are all questions personality theorists have argued with for over a century, and there's no consensus even today. The counselor has to be really directive. No, the counselor needs to lay back and just listen. The counselor has to talk about childhood. No, talking about childhood is a waste of time. The client is thinking things all wrong. No, the client has bottled up feelings that they have to release. No, the client just has to break the bad habits that they've learned. Nope. The client has just got to learn to cope with things better. That's a lot of choices to make when you are trying to decide what counseling approach to work from. That's why so many different counselors work from different approaches. Nobody can even agree with whether the client's problem is actually the problem. Approaches like behavioral counseling, reality therapy, cognitive counseling, solution-focused counseling, these are some of the therapies that say the problem, in your case, procrastination, is the problem. And they would probably dive right in and begin problem solving. But other theories assume that the problem isn't the problem. What the client is telling you is the problem is just a symptom of the actual problem. In other words, the client's problem might be obvious, like procrastination, but the actual problem might be something less obvious, something below the surface, something that probably impacts the client in a lot of other ways besides just procrastination. So you say that you're leaning towards an Adlerian approach. Well, Alfred Adler was one of those theorists. For him, the problem that the client is aware of is happening because of an underlying problem that they aren't aware of. And Adler didn't think the client could get better until they understood why they were procrastinating. So, as an Adlerian, you'd want to help a client gain that insight, which means going back and exploring childhood. Specifically, how their experiences with caregivers when they were little influenced how they came to think about themselves today, how they fit into their family, what they have to do or be in order to have some place in the world. So to answer your question, as an Adlerian, you probably wouldn't move to a solution until you've explored and interpreted their childhood. And you'd take the lead in doing that by asking lots of questions about their family, their early memories, how they compared to their siblings, maybe even dreams they had or still have. Let's say your hypothetical client tells you that when they were growing up, they were made fun of when they made mistakes. They came to believe that they always had to be perfect. That belief might lead them to put off doing things or avoid them altogether unless they were sure they'd get it right. So Adlerian therapy wouldn't be focused on time management skills or coming up with little rewards that you could give yourself for not procrastinating. That would be focusing on the procrastination itself. No, As an Adlerian, you would explore how this belief came to be, that they cannot make a mistake, and how that belief impacts not just procrastination, but lots of other areas of their life too, like maybe feelings of anxiety, low self-esteem, trouble sleeping, problems in their work life, their social life, their home life. But back to your question, when do we need to sit with clients versus move to a CBT type solution? Well, you probably wouldn't spend a whole lot of time listening to them, sitting with them, empathizing with them, accepting them without judgment. Those things are very important in the relationship building stage of Adlerian therapy, but staying there too long would prevent clients from going through the other stages where the real work of therapy is. If you're torn between sitting with a client and moving to a CBT type solution, you might not be an Adlerian therapist. Now, it's too early to be sure, but your question kind of skips over the most important part of Adler's approach. If you like CBT, thankfully, there is a lot of overlap between Adler's ideas and cognitive behavioral therapy. The biggest difference is that cognitive therapists don't think it's critical to go back into childhood and figure out why a person thinks the way they do. You can just dive in and help the client identify the unrealistic beliefs that are making them procrastinate, help them reframe them into beliefs that are more accurate, and the procrastination should abate. Now, a cognitive therapist is aware that clients' core beliefs are formed in childhood, so sometimes a CBT therapist will explore childhood if a client seems open to it. But if a client doesn't particularly want to talk about childhood, gaining that insight is not required from a CBT point of view. So it really sounds like you're straddling between an Adlerian or a CBT approach. And it could come down to how important you think insight into childhood is. If you like aspects of both, you could think of yourself as an Adlerian therapist who sometimes uses CBT techniques in the reorientation stage. Or you could be a cognitive therapist who sometimes uses Adlerian ideas if the client feels like talking about their childhood. This is just some food for thought, though, because you're not supposed to know your theoretical orientation yet. It can take several years of trying different counseling approaches until you find the one that feels the most natural to you. So keep an open mind, see how different clients respond to different things you do, and over time, I'm sure you'll find your own answer. Thanks for that great question, Haley. I hope it helps. I love to hear from counselors and non-counselors alike. So if you're somebody who's interested in mental health, send your question in to DrBretsMailbag@gmail.com. Check out some of the other talks I have on this channel. Like and subscribe. Leave me your comments below. And I hope to see you again real soon here in Dr. Bret's office.